They thought it was just another wardrobe malfunction. Wrestling fans around the world watched Brock Lesnar's pants completely tear during his match on SmackDown and assumed it was an embarrassing accident that would be forgotten by next week's show. But Roman Reigns just shattered that narrative with the most explosive interview in wrestling history, revealing that Brock's wardrobe malfunction was actually the smoking gun that exposed WWE's most sickening conspiracy, a systematic plan to humiliate and destroy performers through deliberate sabotage, public embarrassment, and corporate-sponsored psychological warfare that makes their medical torture look like amateur hour. What Roman discovered about the real reason behind Brock's ripped pants will make you question everything you thought you knew about WWE's treatment of their own superstars and the lengths they'll go to maintain absolute control. The interview that changed everything happened just 6 hours after Brock's humiliating experience on live television, when Roman Reigns contacted wrestling media with urgent information that he claimed would expose the sickest aspect of WWE's war against independent-minded performers. Roman wasn't calling from his usual locations, he was speaking from a secure facility where he'd been recovering from his own medical imprisonment, and his voice carried the authority of someone who had connected dots that would destroy careers and potentially end WWE as we know it. Brock's pants didn't just tear, Roman's first words cut through the phone line like a blade. They were systematically weakened using chemical compounds that would cause catastrophic failure at the exact moment when it would create maximum embarrassment and career damage. The revelation that Brock's wardrobe malfunction had been deliberately engineered sent shockwaves through everyone listening, transforming what appeared to be an accident into evidence of corporate sabotage at its most personal and humiliating level. WWE has been using clothing sabotage as psychological warfare for months, Roman continued with clinical precision that made everyone understand this was about documented patterns rather than isolated incidents. Targeting performers who threaten corporate control, who demand fair contracts, who refuse to be corporate puppets dancing to executive music. But Roman's investigation into the clothing sabotage conspiracy had uncovered something even more disturbing than simple embarrassment tactics. He had discovered that WWE was using public humiliation as the first phase of systematic performer destruction designed to break spirits before eliminating careers entirely. Brock's pants were just the beginning, Roman revealed with growing anger. They had plans for escalating humiliation campaigns that would systematically destroy his credibility, his confidence, and his ability to command respect from audiences or fellow performers. The systematic nature of WWE's humiliation campaign revealed a level of psychological sophistication that transformed corporate politics into genuine psychological torture designed to break performers mentally before eliminating them physically. They studied Brock's psychology. Roman continued his devastating exposures. His pride, his need for physical dominance, his requirement for respect, all of it catalogued and weaponized to create maximum psychological damage through targeted public embarrassment. But perhaps the most sickening aspect of Roman's revelations was his discovery that the clothing sabotage had been just one component of a comprehensive humiliation program that included rigged equipment, manipulated storylines, and coordinated social media campaigns designed to destroy performer reputations. Brock's pants were chemically treated to fail at the exact moment when cameras would capture maximum embarrassment. Roman explained with horror that made everyone understand this was about systematic cruelty rather than simple corporate politics. But that was just phase one of a program designed to systematically strip him of every source of professional dignity. The methodical planning that had gone into Brock's public humiliation revealed corporate sadism that transcended business considerations and entered the realm of genuine evil designed to cause maximum psychological suffering. Phase 2 was social media manipulation. Roman continued his systematic exposure of WWE's psychological warfare program. Coordinated campaigns to amplify the embarrassment, create viral memes, and ensure that Brock's humiliation would be permanently associated with his legacy. But Roman's most explosive revelation concerned the corporate executives who had personally authorized and funded the humiliation campaigns, revealing systematic cruelty at the highest levels of WWE's power structure. Stephanie McMahon personally approved the clothing sabotage budget, Roman announced, his words sending panic through WWE's corporate structure. $200,000 specifically allocated for wardrobe manipulation services designed to cause targeted performer embarrassment. The existence of specific budget allocations for systematic humiliation revealed WWE's commitment to psychological warfare as a legitimate business strategy rather than isolated incident or rogue employee activity. Triple H provided psychological profiles of target performers. Roman continued his destruction of WWE's executive leadership. Detailed assessments of individual vulnerabilities, emotional triggers, and specific humiliation strategies that would cause maximum psychological damage. But perhaps the most damaging evidence was Roman's discovery that the humiliation campaigns had been coordinated with medical imprisonment programs to create comprehensive performer destruction that attacked both psychological and physical well-being simultaneously. They were planning to use Brock's embarrassment to justify medical intervention, Roman revealed with growing horror. claims that his humiliation had triggered psychological breakdown requiring immediate corporate medical custody and extended treatment. The systematic coordination of public humiliation with medical imprisonment revealed WWE's conspiracy as more than individual programs. It was a comprehensive performer control system designed to eliminate independence through combined psychological and physical attack. Brock's embarrassment would have been used as evidence that he was mentally unstable. Roman continued his exposure of the psychological manipulation program, requiring medical intervention, psychiatric evaluation, and potential legal guardianship that would transfer control of his assets to corporate authorities. But Roman's investigation had also uncovered the broader scope of WWE's humiliation campaigns, revealing systematic targeting of multiple performers who had been deemed threats to corporate control. "I found lists," Roman announced with satisfaction, that sent terror through WWE's corporate structure. Detailed target assessments for systematic humiliation campaigns against every performer who had demanded creative control, fair compensation, or protection from corporate abuse. The existence of target lists for systematic humiliation revealed WWE's conspiracy as more than anti-Brock sentiment. It was infrastructure for psychological warfare that would break any performer who threatened corporate authority. CM Punk was targeted for ring equipment sabotage. Roman continued his systematic exposure of the broader conspiracy. Rigged turnbuckles designed to fail during high-impact moves, creating maximum injury risk while maintaining plausible deniability about corporate responsibility. But perhaps the most personally devastating revelation was Roman's discovery that his own medical imprisonment had been preceded by months of systematic humiliation attempts that had been less successful due to his psychological resilience. "They tried clothing sabotage on me first," Roman revealed with cold fury. "Chemical treatment of my ring gear designed to cause embarrassing failures during title defenses, but my equipment manager was loyal and replaced everything before the sabotage could take effect." The failed attempts at humiliating Roman provided insight into WWE's standard operating procedures and revealed how his survival of psychological warfare had escalated their campaign to include medical imprisonment and attempted murder. "When humiliation tactics failed to break me," Roman continued his analysis of WWE's escalation patterns, "they moved to direct medical intervention because psychological warfare wasn't sufficient to eliminate my independence." But Roman's most shocking revelation concerned Brock's psychological response to his public humiliation and the immediate vulnerability it created for additional corporate manipulation. "Brock is devastated," Roman revealed with obvious concern for his former opponent. "Not just embarrassed, but psychologically broken in ways that make him susceptible to corporate manipulation and control that he would normally resist." The successful psychological destruction of Brock Lesnar through targeted humiliation demonstrated the effectiveness of WWE's psychological warfare program and the vulnerability it created in even the strongest performers. "They're offering Brock solutions to his embarrassment," Roman continued with growing alarm. "Medical treatment for performance anxiety, psychological counseling through corporate-controlled therapists, even surgical interventions that would place him under corporate medical authority." The systematic exploitation of Brock's psychological vulnerability created by their own sabotage revealed WWE's humiliation campaigns as preparation for more invasive control measures rather than ends in themselves. "Brock is being manipulated into accepting corporate solutions for problems they created," Roman explained with horror at the psychological sophistication of their manipulation. Trading his independence for protection from embarrassment they engineered specifically to make him desperate for relief. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of WWE's psychological warfare program was the recruitment of other performers as unwitting participants in humiliation campaigns against their own colleagues. "They convinced wrestlers that Brock's embarrassment was accidental," Roman revealed with disgust at the manipulation of performer solidarity. "Getting people who should be supporting him to participate in social media campaigns that amplified his humiliation." The systematic corruption of performer relationships through manipulation and misinformation revealed WWE's ability to turn colleagues against each other while maintaining plausible deniability about corporate involvement. Wrestlers were making jokes about Brock's pants without realizing they were participating in systematic psychological torture. Roman continued his exposure of how corporate manipulation corrupted natural performer solidarity. But Roman's most explosive accusation concerned the role that certain wrestling media personalities had played in amplifying WWE's humiliation campaigns while pretending to provide independent coverage. Wrestling journalists were provided with talking points about Brock's decline and embarrassing moments, Roman announced with controlled fury. Corporate propaganda disguised as independent analysis, designed to amplify psychological damage through media multiplication. The systematic corruption of wrestling media to serve corporate humiliation campaigns revealed how thoroughly WWE had infiltrated supposedly independent sources of information and analysis. Dave Meltzer personally received corporate guidance about how to frame Brock's embarrassment. Roman continued his systematic destruction of wrestling media credibility. Specific language designed to maximize psychological impact while maintaining the appearance of journalistic objectivity. But perhaps the most personally devastating revelation was Roman's discovery that the humiliation campaigns had been designed not just to break individual performers, but to serve as public warnings to anyone else who might consider challenging corporate authority. Brock's public humiliation was intended as an example, Roman revealed with cold understanding of WWE's psychological strategy. A demonstration of what happens to even the strongest, most legitimate performers when they threaten corporate control. The use of systematic humiliation as deterrent messaging to other performers revealed WWE's psychological warfare as more than individual targeting, it was corporate terrorism designed to prevent any challenge to executive authority. Every wrestler watching Brock's embarrassment was supposed to understand that independence leads to public destruction. Roman continued his analysis of WWE's intimidation tactics. That corporate compliance is the only protection from systematic humiliation and career destruction. But Roman's most powerful revelation concerned his decision to expose WWE's humiliation conspiracy despite the personal risks and potential retaliation he would face for speaking out. "I'm breaking my silence because Brock doesn't deserve what they're doing to him," Roman declared with moral authority that made everyone understand this was about principles rather than personal advantage. No performer deserves to be systematically humiliated and psychologically tortured for demanding fair treatment. The moral courage that Roman demonstrated by risking retaliation to protect a former opponent provided a template for how wrestling could transform if performers united against systematic abuse rather than accepting corporate divide and conquer tactics. "Brock and I have had our differences," Roman acknowledged with obvious respect for his former rival, but seeing him psychologically destroyed through systematic corporate sabotage crosses lines that no decent person can ignore. But perhaps Roman's most significant revelation concerned the evidence he had gathered to support his accusations and his plans for ensuring that WWE's humiliation conspiracy would face legal and professional consequences. "I have documentation," Roman announced with confidence that sent panic through WWE's corporate structure. Budget records for humiliation campaigns, psychological profiles of target performers, communications between executives and media personalities, everything needed to prove systematic psychological warfare. The existence of comprehensive evidence transformed Roman's accusations from controversial claims into potential criminal charges that could destroy careers and result in federal prosecution for psychological torture and conspiracy. "Federal investigators are already reviewing the evidence," Roman continued with satisfaction that made everyone understand this was about official consequences rather than just wrestling drama. Corporate psychological warfare, systematic humiliation campaigns, and coordinated media manipulation could result in charges ranging from conspiracy to civil rights violations. But Roman's most important message concerned the broader implications of WWE's humiliation conspiracy for performer safety and the urgent need for industry-wide reforms to protect wrestlers from psychological warfare. "This isn't just about Brock," Roman declared with authority that elevated his revelations beyond individual incident to systematic industry problem. "This is about WWE using psychological torture as standard business practice, treating performer humiliation as legitimate corporate strategy." The systematic nature of WWE's psychological warfare revealed industry-wide problems that extended far beyond individual cases to include fundamental questions about performer dignity and corporate responsibility. Every wrestler needs to understand that wardrobe malfunctions, equipment failures, and social media controversies might not be accidents, Roman warned with urgent concern for performer safety. "They might be corporate weapons designed to break your spirit and force submission to executive control." But perhaps Roman's most powerful statement concerned his commitment to supporting Brock through his recovery from systematic psychological warfare and his determination to prevent similar attacks on other performers. "Brock is stronger than WWE executives realize," Roman declared with confidence in his former opponent's resilience. "Their psychological warfare will ultimately fail because genuine strength can't be destroyed by corporate manufactured embarrassment." The faith that Roman expressed in Brock's psychological recovery provided hope that WWE's humiliation campaigns could be survived and that performer solidarity could overcome corporate attempts to divide and destroy. But Brock doesn't have to face this alone, Roman continued with obvious commitment to supporting his former rival. "Every performer who has been targeted by corporate psychological warfare deserves support, protection, and solidarity from colleagues who understand what they're facing." The wrestling world was struggling to process Roman Reigns' explosive revelations about WWE's systematic humiliation conspiracy and the corporate-sponsored psychological warfare that had turned Brock Lesnar's wardrobe malfunction into targeted psychological torture. But Roman's courage in exposing these systematic abuses had accomplished more than just revealing corporate crimes. He had demonstrated that performer solidarity could overcome corporate attempts to divide wrestlers against each other through manipulation and intimidation. Brock's embarrassment was engineered by people who view performers as expendable assets, Roman concluded with finality that made everyone understand the stakes involved. But their psychological warfare will ultimately fail because it's based on the false assumption that wrestlers will accept abuse rather than fight back. The silence had been broken, the conspiracy had been exposed, and the evidence was being reviewed by federal investigators. WWE's humiliation campaigns were finally facing consequences, and performers were finally understanding that they didn't have to accept psychological torture as the price of wrestling success. Roman Reigns had broken his silence to protect Brock Lesnar from systematic corporate abuse, proving that some principles are more important than personal advantage and that performer solidarity is stronger than corporate psychological warfare. The truth about Brock's ripped pants was finally exposed, and it revealed systematic evil that would change wrestling forever. Roman had spoken, justice was coming, and WWE's reign of psychological terror was finally facing the consequences it had earned through systematic cruelty disguised as business strategy.